All right, today we are diving into a really cool idea that explains those moments when everything just joyfully, chaotically turns upside down. We're talking about Bakhtin's Carnival.
I mean, really think about it. Have you ever been swept up in a huge street festival, or a parade, or a celebration so big that all the normal rules of life just seem to dissolve? That feeling of wild collective joy?
Well, it turns out that feeling isn't just a random vibe. Nope, it's a really powerful social phenomenon, and it has a name, the carnival. And we're going to unpack exactly what that means.
Okay, so let's get right into it. To really get this idea, we first have to meet the guy who put a name to the chaos. This is Mikhail Bakhtin. He was this brilliant Russian philosopher who looked at these moments of public partying and saw something way, way deeper. He saw a whole alternative world being born, even if just for a moment. Now, you have to understand the context here, because it is everything. Bakhtin was cooking up these ideas about freedom and laughter and flipping authority on its head back in the 1930s, right under the iron fist of Stalin's Russia. You know, a time of insane fear and censorship. His book didn't even get published for decades, so just writing about this stuff was a quiet but incredibly brave act of rebellion.
So what exactly is the Carnivalesque? Well, Bakhtin called it a second world. It's this temporary bubble where all the official rules just vanish. It's this moment of total liberation where life is run only by, and I love this quote, the laws of its own freedom. It's like the world gets a hard reset, if only for a little while.
Okay, so how does this upside-down world actually work? Bakhtin broke it down for us. He said there are three core pillars that hold the whole thing up.
And here they are. These are the three key ingredients you need for a true carnival. Flipping the hierarchies, a focus on what he called the grotesque body, and this very special kind of laughter he called ambivalent.
First up, inversion. This is huge. The number one thing you do at a carnival is you take a nobody, a peasant, a jester, and you crown them king for a day. And then, of course, you playfully kick him off the throne later. In that moment, all the social barriers just poof, they're gone. The poor get to mock the rich, the fool is treated like a genius, and the entire power structure gets turned on its head. Pillar number 2 is what Bakhtin called the grotesque body. You see, official culture, high culture, is all about the pure, the clean, the ideal. Well, Carnival does the exact opposite. It celebrates the messy, earthy, physical parts of being human. You know, the eating, the drinking, the burping, all the stuff that reminds us we're living, breathing animals.
And for Bakhtin, this focus on the lower body wasn't just about being crude. No way. In Carnival, degradation is also about regeneration. It's kind of like burying the seed in the dirt. By bringing everything back down to earth, Carnival celebrates the cycle of death and rebirth, clearing the way for something totally new and better to grow.
And finally, we have ambivalent laughter. Now, this isn't your average chuckle. This is a huge, festive, universal laughter that makes fun of everything and everyone. And that includes the people who are laughing. That's the ambivalent part. It's aimed out at the powerful, but it's also aimed right back at yourself. The whole point is to free us from fear, fear of authority, fear of being judged. It's a laugh that says, hey, maybe all these rules aren't as set in stone as we think.
Okay, so that's the theory. But remember, Bakhtin was a literary guy first and foremost, and he started seeing this carnival spirit popping up everywhere in great literature.
And once you have this lens, you see it everywhere. Take Rabelais, for instance. His books are full of crude, marketplace language and bodily humor that was a direct challenge to the stiff authority of the church. Or think about a modern book like Life of Pi. The story blurs the line between human and animal, and that forces a kind of spiritual rebirth. And then there's James Joyce's Ulysses. The famous Circe episode is pure carnival, a wild psychological fever dream where reality completely falls apart.
But this stuff doesn't just live in books. The spirit of carnival is an incredibly powerful force out in the real world for social and political change, both way back when and right this very second. I mean, the range is just incredible. You see it with medieval peasants dressing up as kings to poke fun at their feudal lords. You see it centuries later in the costumes and street theater humor of Occupy Wall Street, which was all about challenging the story of economic power. Some people have even used this idea to look at the COVID lockdowns, arguing that the whole concept of an essential worker created this temporary inversion, crowning the lowly and showing just how fragile our social systems really are. A perfect modern example comes from the Gezi protests in Turkey. The government tried to dismiss the protesters by calling them çapulcu, which means looters or rabble. So what did the protesters do?
In a classic carnivalesque move, they took the insult and wore it as a badge of honor. They completely flipped the language of power and turned it into a symbol of pride and solidarity. But look, this is a seriously powerful idea, and just like the carnival itself, the theory has a flip side. It's faced some really intense debate and criticism over the years.
So here's the central question. Is carnival a tool for liberation, or could it actually be a tool for tyranny? Most people see it as a clear protest against regimes like Stalin's. But one famous critic, Boris Groys, flipped that argument on its head. He suggested that carnival's focus on this chaotic, collective mass that just swallows up the individual, well, that it actually mirrors the logic of Stalin's public terror. That's a really provocative thought, right?
And other critiques have helped the theory evolve. The feminist scholar Mary Russo pointed out that Bakhtin's grotesque body totally overlooks gender, and how that idea often gets unfairly mapped onto female bodies in really negative ways. At the same time, the theories found a whole new relevance in decolonial thought, where events like the Trinidad Carnival are seen as powerful acts of resistance against the long history of colonial oppression. So these critiques, they don't tear the theory down. They actually make it an even sharper tool for understanding power today.
So what's the big takeaway here? The idea of carnival is so much more than a way to analyze a party. It's a lens. It's a tool for seeing power in a totally different way. It shows us that there's this constant, creative, messy struggle going on between the world as it's supposed to be and the world as people actually live it.
And that kind of leaves us with one final question to chew on. Whether it's in art, or online, or out in the streets, where do you see the spirit of carnival at work today, turning our official world upside down?